right, welcome back, everybody. Let's get straight into it.
We're going to get into this story about New York City, and then we're going to move on into the super chats. Our big news for this week is that the Democrat Socialists of America, backed by Zohran Mamdani, have swept the Democrat congressional primary in New York City. Huge news on Tuesday. The New York primaries were being held, and Zohran Mamdani, the recently elected mayor of New York City, backed 3 congressional primary candidates in the Democrat race for Congress, all progressives, all Democratic socialists. Each of them was up against an establishment opponent. And all of their opponents, down to the man or woman, they were backed by Hakeem Jeffries, the Democrat leader in the House. They were backed by the labor unions. They were backed by the institutional Democrat Party. And the big story out of Tuesday is that every single one of these Zohran-backed progressive DSA primary candidates won their races.
Yeah, guys, we don't even have liberals to hold back the far left right now. The liberals at some point, they were just, the kind of the wall between wider society and the far left. Now that's completely gone. They're losing to them, and communism is going to win some people over. So we do have our work cut out for us. We absolutely have to hit the far left in all ways that we possibly can. And I'm even seeing some far right people. I saw Virillium, on Twitter, and he's like, oh, communists aren't that bad. Haz Eldin. Fuck Haz Eldin. Fuck communists, dude. And he's like, oh, our differences are just abstract ideas. Dude, get out of here.
Against the establishment, every single one. And not only that, but the DSA gained seats in the New York State Assembly as well. And so it looked like a blowout night in New York for the Democrat Socialists of America, for the far left progressives of the party, as far left as it gets. And this is a story from the New York Times that talks a little bit about what happened. It says, quote, on Tuesday, Democrats backed by large labor unions, their House leader, and the party's longstanding Black and Latino old guard were drubbed up and down the ballot by left-leaning insurgents whom the mayor, Zohran Mamdani, threw his weight behind. Democrats across the country have shown for months that they are furious at the party leadership for failing to stop President Trump, and they have been willing to use their votes to show it by embracing populists and leftists. Mr. Mamdani's candidates toppled 2 incumbents, Representatives Daniel Goldman and Adriano Espaillat, and Jewish and Dominican Democrats who had the support of major labor unions, popular local politicians, and Hakeem Jeffries. In addition, Claire Valdez, a little-known DSA assemblywoman, easily defeated Antonio Reynoso, the Brooklyn borough president, in a race for a soon-to-be vacant congressional seat. Down the ballot, Mr. Mamdani and the DSA were also on track to pick up 6 new seats in the state legislature, increasing its presence in Albany from, or rather 15 lawmakers from 9. Mr. Mamdani offered his own assessment on Wednesday, saying his candidates had prevailed because voters were hungry for politics that prioritizes working people over foreign entanglements, particularly in Israel. Referring to Daraliza Chevalier, who defeated Mr. Espaillat, Mr. Mamdani said he expected the congressional candidates that he backed to focus on a vision, as Daraliza often talks about, of investing in babies and not bombs.
Yeah, these people, they want to capture the people that are questioning the JQ and Israel and all of that, what's going on, the war in Iran. They want to capture those people and be like, well, if you want that, if you want action on that, on Israel, then you got to vote for the communist, and you got to vote for the socialist. And you see tons of right-wing people are falling for that.
That, he said, is the kind of conscience, clarity, conviction that has been missing in our politics for far too long. In the 13th district in Upper Manhattan and the Bronx, Ms. Chevalier, the far-left organizer and a PhD student who defeated Espaillat, got her votes largely from young white people, while her opponent got his from older Dominicans, according to an analysis by John Mollenkampf, a professor of political science at CUNY Graduate Center. Brandon Mancia, the regional director of the United Auto Workers, one of the few unions that backed both Ms. Valdez and Chevalier, said the Democratic Party leaders had failed to understand how crucial opposition to Israel had become to Democratic voters. He said, quote, people have really had enough of the blank check to funding the Israeli military and support either materially or politically to the occupation in the West Bank. That has become a real red line. So this is the big question. The DSA, the progressives, had a very good night in New York. And everybody's wondering what exactly we should attribute this to. Why is it that the establishment, the party apparatus, the unions, the Black and Latino caucus, why are they getting utterly annihilated and wiped out by these far-left socialist community organizers? And it seems like there's really two explanations. And one, maybe the big one, is the issue of Israel. The Democrat Party establishment is pro-Israel, and they have to be.
And people that are like falling for the left being anti-Israel, like, dude, they don't like Israel for completely different reasons. They think it's a white settler colonial apartheid state. Like, that's why they're upset at it. They're not upset that it's the Zog.
Because that is the big Democrat Party money. That is the big Jewish money, is all pro-Israel. And maybe they don't like Netanyahu necessarily, and maybe they don't love everything that's going on in Israel, but they are pro-Israel. And on some level, they even support what is going on right now. And so the Democratic Party effectively has to be pro-Israel. All these far-left progressives are anti-Israel, Israel critical. Many of them are even Jewish. Many of them would even identify as liberal Zionists. They may be Jewish, they may support Israel and a liberal vision of Zionism, but they're against U.S. support for Israel, and in particular, U.S. support for Israel's wars. And so this is a big dividing line, but it's not the only thing. I would argue that the real reason that the DSA had a very good night in New York is simply because in New York, they just have a center of mass. What a lot of people don't realize is that the Democratic Socialists just have a massive ground game. They have a huge infrastructure in that city. They've got tens of thousands of activists. They've been building this up for years.
And the thing is, too, if you think, oh, it's just going to stay contained in New York City, I'm just going to go to my humble little abode in Oklahoma or Arkansas or wherever you are. I'm far away. I'm in Idaho. No, they're going to use that as the staging ground. They're going to use that as the nucleus, and they're going to spread out from there, and then they're going to come and get you. It doesn't matter if you're returned to the land like Arvel or whatever. They're going to come and get you. They're going to find you, and eventually they'll kill you.
They have been building up a network of small dollar donors, door knockers, phone bankers, activists. And I looked at some reporting that was done by Karlin Borsenko on Twitter. She did a really nice thread about this earlier in the week. She listened in on one of the DSA party meetings, and the numbers are just unbelievable what they're doing. And this is from one of her Twitter threads. It says that the DSA in Zohran Mamdani's mayoral race, we don't have the numbers yet for this primary, but for Zohran's mayoral campaign last year, the DSA knocked on 1.6 million doors. They made 2.3 million phone calls doing phone banking. They had an army of 30,000 volunteers, and they hosted 3,000 events in the run-up to the election in New York. And that was all within 100 days of the election. Okay? So in a city of 8 million people, metro area, I think, is bigger, but in the city limits, I believe it's 8 million people. They knocked on 1.6 million doors. So what is that, like 13%? A little bit more than that. I guess that's like 18% of the entire city. They knocked on their doors. 25% of all New Yorkers they called on the phone. Thousands of events, tens of thousands of volunteers. And these are people that are motivated. These are people that are fanatical. These are people that are excited.
Bro, they think they're bringing about the socialist revolution. Like, they're not even delusional like that. They actually believe in it, though they can probably do it, actually. And that's the difference. We have to have people on our side that actually believe in a future.
Being trained up, they got the t-shirt, and they're going out every weekend. This is just straight up people power. They raised millions of dollars from a donor network of 20,000 small dollar donors. And in the city, they have this program where they actually match the contributions. So they had 20,000 small dollar donors. Average donation was $80. And so when you consider the depth and the breadth of that ground game and just on the numbers, you realize what is going on here. Moreover, when you look at the polling in Zohran Mamdani's mayoral campaign, he was an upset victory because he outperformed his polling numbers. It turns out that Andrew Cuomo last year, he performed about as well as the polling predicted. Zohran Mamdani outperformed the polling by a significant margin. So why is it that the polls were right about Cuomo, wrong about Mamdani? It's because they didn't realize what the ground game was doing in the city, which is they were converting Trump voters to being Mamdani voters. They were going out to young people that ordinarily wouldn't have voted and got them to the polls. They got people that historically stay home, they got them to register, and they got them out to vote. And so it's very similar to like in 2016, like that shy Trump effect, where Trump was able to get some of the Obama voters and Trump was able to get people that hadn't voted in a few cycles or maybe ever.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are susceptible to socialism. They maybe identify as a liberal, but they're like, oh, I don't want to associate with all that baggage and stuff. But when everybody around them starts to turn socialists or communists, and they're the odd liberal out, and they're like, oh, I'm not like that. You think that incredible amount of social pressure and those kinds of people that they're not going to crack? No, they absolutely will. And they'll just conform and be socialists and communists. I mean, I've seen it personally in my own life before.
He was able to turn out these people, in that case, because of the strength of the message. In this case, the DSA and these progressives in this particular city, in this particular situation, why are they outperforming expectations? Why are they having these big upset victories? Why are they outperforming what they're expected to do? It's because they're hitting the pavement. They're pounding the pavement. They got 30,000 volunteers. They're knocking on millions of doors, making millions of calls, doing thousands of events. They have tens of thousands of small dollar donors. And they're getting people out to the polls that don't usually vote. It's a lot of young white people. It's a lot of non-conventional ethnic minorities that are going out to vote that maybe don't usually vote. Maybe it is people that are more right-wing populist or people that don't traditionally vote in a midterm election and in a midterm primary election. That's a source of their strength. And so when we talk about what happened in New York in particular, we have to be careful not to overlearn the lesson and to say that this is some kind of national trend that people are crying out for democratic socialism or progressivism. I don't think that is necessarily the case. When we look at New York City in particular, we have to think about the particular political situation, which is that New York has become a hotspot of democratic organizing. And I think there's a lesson in there for Republicans. We have to take a page out of their playbook and do the same thing.
I've been saying for so long, right-wing nationalists, we have to take back the cities and maybe take back a city, and that becomes the hub, right? Sort of like how they're doing there. Everyone knows New York is very liberal, and that's where all the socialists are, right? If you're a socialist, you go to New York City. Why doesn't the right wing have the same kind of mentality? Why isn't it that we want people, you should want to take back New York City, first of all. It's the jewel of America. Fuck letting them have it. Why the hell would you want to let a bunch of communists basically own and run New York City? If you're right wing, you should move back to New York City, all right? Establish yourself, all right? Move to New York City and actually make a name for yourself. Say, I'm not afraid of you people.
Which is one, geographical concentration. I really believe the future is to go into friendly areas, friendly cities, friendly states, and to build up a local network of activists, allied businesses, allied donors, allied politicians, and just engage in the people power. You got to pound the pavement. You got to turn your people out. I don't know what a conservative city might be. Maybe that's Fort Worth. Maybe that's a city like, I don't know about Miami. I mean, that's a city in a right-wing state. Maybe it's Tallahassee. Maybe it's, There aren't too many right-wing cities. Maybe it's Oklahoma City, maybe it's Coeur d'Alene. Here's the problem, however, and this is a structural problem. Unfortunately, leftists just outnumber us in the cities that matter. Sadly, New York City is the most powerful city in America, followed maybe by LA, San Francisco, DC.
Yeah, and you have the population of unwashed masses, and you tell them you're going to give them free stuff. That's so easy, dude. That's the easiest sell. You can say free Palestine, and I'm going to give you free stuff, a bunch of free stuff. That is a hell of a message to contend with. To be honest, we have to be completely honest about our enemy, and we're going to have to counter that. We're going to have to take back the cities.
And what these cities all have in common: huge populations, education centers, business and government centers, major ports where commerce happens, cottage industries like government, finance, entertainment, tech. And the other thing they all have in common: a ton of international people, a ton of foreign-born, ton of immigrants, ton of non-whites, extreme diversity, people with advanced degrees, wealthy people. And what this means is they're all too liberal. So sadly, in the major population centers where the power truly resides, this is where you have a giant underclass of immigrants and DoorDash drivers and students and couriers and Uber drivers, all these different disaffected types of people, minorities and immigrant communities, and people that are just generally left-leaning in their disposition. So it's a huge population base to tap into for soldiers, activists, small dollar donors, assemblymen, all these different kinds of things. And so can we take a page out of their playbook? Maybe in principle, which is concentrate geographically, focus our energy, our resources, our human capital, but the manner in which we apply it is not going to be necessarily the same. Take over Fort Worth? Okay, who cares? Take over Oklahoma City? Okay, who cares? Maybe we got to think bigger and think take over Texas, take over Florida, take over North Carolina, take over a state. Maybe we don't have the geographical concentration and the numbers to take over a giant city, a major metro like New York, but can we take over a state like Texas? Are there enough among the 38 million Texans that are right-wing? Perhaps. Maybe this is the lesson that we learn. It's more in principle rather than the precise application. But clearly this is what the Democrats are doing, and what they're able to achieve with this is a vanguard-like effect.
And see, I get what he's saying, where you want to spread out in places that it's a little bit easier of a victory too. But I think having very specialized campaign efforts, teams, you could say, to do stuff like groundwork, door knock in these major metropolitan cities, in these downtown areas, in these cores where people live, in the surrounding areas around cities, these places matter quite a bit. And to be honest, like myself, living in Toronto, people are highly susceptible to our message. When I go out there and I talk to white people like us, even non-whites that are, white adjacent Christians, and they agree with us. They agree with the Groyper message completely, but they feel like they can't say it publicly. And so we have to be present. We have to be loud and vocal enough, especially in the large population centers, that other people feel that they are safe enough to speak up. Even though we know Antifa may come at us, it allows the average Joe, whoever, to have a voice.
Even if New York City may not necessarily want socialism or may not necessarily want Sharia law or queer liberation or whatever, maybe they do. But they're getting it because of a highly motivated, fanatical, ideological vanguard. In other words, who is going to build the army? As it turns out, if New York is a city of 8 million, you don't need 4 million people. You don't need 4 million people to sign up to your ideology. You don't even need the majority of the voters to sign up to your ideology. Who will win the majority of voters and then control the entire polity is the group that is able to create an army that will convince enough voters to win the election. So what I mean by that is Zoran doesn't command an army of 8 million, but he controls a city of 8 million. Zoran didn't need the majority to win the election because the majority didn't even vote. He didn't even need the majority of the people that voted to be 100% on board with the DSA. What he needed was 30,000 volunteers. What he needed was just 30,000 out of 8 million, and maybe they're not even out of that 8 million. But what he needed was 30,000 people here, 30,000 people in the city, 30,000 people that believe in the message enough that they were willing to do something. Who can get 30,000 people to get off their ass, put on the shirt, and knock on a door? Because if you have an army of 30,000, you can do 2.5 million calls. You can do 2 million door knocking. You can do millions of dollars. You can do 20,000 donors.
And that's like real on the ground change, guys. Like, this is the kind of stuff we're talking about here. Doing, street fights or whatever with communists is never going to get us anywhere. It's only going to get in more trouble. We don't want a repeat of Charlottesville or January 6th. People get, years taken away from their lives. Some people lose their lives. We don't want any of that stuff. What we want is control of the levers of power, the state. Eventually, use the state against our adversaries, obviously. But to get there, we have to follow a certain procedure. And I see a lot of people that go, oh, yeah, but, I just don't feel like being a volunteer for a campaign. And it's like, do you even care?
With $80 average contribution, you only need 30,000. You only need that vanguard. And sure, some of them are going to be at the lowest level, knocking on the door and making the call, but others are going to be middle management. Others are going to have skills that they can bring to open up an office and to manage a team and do things like that. Others are going to be larger donors. In other words, people are going to have different levels of expertise, but it's about getting an army of people that believe enough to take action in one place. And those are the soldiers that are going to go and recruit the voters. See, it's all about these buckets. The voters just need to be committed enough to, on one day, cast the ballot. But what happened behind the scenes is he needed 30,000 people that were committed enough to actually go out. And that's the basis of the people power. Could Andrew Cuomo get people to door knock at that level, phone bank at that level, doing events at that level, contribute at that level? No, he didn't have nearly as many donors. He didn't have nearly as many door knockers. They didn't believe in it.
Yeah, and you may say, well, it's socialism, it's communism, it's pie in the sky, utopian fantasies. It's never going to happen. Dude, doesn't matter because they believe it's going to happen. It doesn't matter whether or not you're a utopian fantasy. That'll never come true. No, simply because they believe it's going to happen because of the fruits of their labor, because of their effort, they might usher it into existence. They might will it into existence. Maybe they are so successful by their own efforts, by their own will, that they actually make New York a communist state. Imagine that, all through hard work and determination, right? Where is that when it comes to winning on the far right, on the nationalist side?
And so, sure, he had the endorsements and he had the labor unions and he had the big money behind him and he had some of the national media and the New York Times and all of that institutional power on his side, but he didn't have the people power. And you see, this is why the Republicans fear the Groypers fundamentally. Why do they fear the Groypers? Why do they fear me? It's not because we're going to get 180 million people to believe in Groyperism and vote for the Groyper president. That's not why. It's not even because they think there's 100 million of us or 50 million of us. It's because there might be 50 to 100,000 of us across the country. 50 to 100,000 of us that could maybe go to a state or a city or wherever where it counts. And in a close race, maybe they can make a difference. And I don't think the time is yet right for the Groypers to come out in full force. We have to choose the battle very carefully. You see, this is the thing. In 2020, 6, you saw that race in Ohio. It's a huge state. Too many people. Casey Push, not a great candidate. Even the people power in Ohio might not have been enough to overturn it. What's more, there are some other difficulties with the far right that the far left does not have. It's not socially unacceptable to be far left right now.
Dude, I literally get into arguments with like leftist family members who they unironically think that Mao and like people like Stalin and like Lenin, they were totally like benevolent leaders. They were fine. They didn't commit any horrible atrocities, genocides, or purges. None of that. Like, they unironically believe that people that have a higher body count than Adolf Hitler, all right, which isn't even that big of a body count in comparison to theirs, although it's pretty big. These guys have like 100 million body counts, bro, as individuals. Like Mao and Stalin, it's like these guys are like straight up apocalyptic, and there's like little to no social taboo, especially in major cities. There's little to no social taboo of being a fan of these people.
If you go out and claim to be a member of DSA and watch Hassan Piker and the rest of it, you don't get fired from your job. If you put on a t-shirt that says, I'm DSA, a journalist isn't going to show up and dox you and get you kicked out of your job and interrogate you. Do you believe in everything Nick Fuentes says? That's what happens to us, though. And so it's not so simple to translate it. We struggle with translating that into the real world because the second that I put up a rallying point and say, hey, everybody, let's go out here and we're going to do a rally in phone bank. You know who's coming with us? 50 different journalists. If I say, hey, everybody, let's all go to Ohio and we're going to phone bank and we're going to door knock, yeah, 1,000 of you are going to show up. And you know who else is going to show up? 20 journalists. And they're going to take a picture of everybody there, and everyone's going to get doxxed, and they're going to be interrogating everybody saying, do you support what Nick said about the Holocaust and this, that, and the other? And so we have to go about it in a way that's more clandestine. And this is why I tell my followers, this is our approach. I tell the groypers, you need to get involved at the local level on your own. And I know that's not a sexy, exciting thing you want to hear, but you need to go to your college Republicans. You want to find groypers? College Republicans. College Republicans and young Republicans. Do it tonight. Google it. My local college Republican, young Republican chapter, and join.
Yeah, a fantastic thing if you're not in school and you're like a working class man. The bars, obviously, like when I go out to the pubs, the taverns, I talk to the young men, the young white men, even the white adjacent men, and they love the message, bro. Like, people are hyper receptive, especially in person. They go, man, you're saying all the things that I can't say, you know, and this is true. And so go out and evangelize people in public. That's what we should do. Can like show people, and I don't mean in public, like don't go around, I don't know, like with a billboard on you, but don't be afraid to talk to people and bring them to our side. There's tons of normies out there that just need a little bit of convincing to be one of us.
Your local Republican Party, get involved in a campaign. Start to get out there, and slowly but surely the Overton window is going to change. More and more, there's groypers everywhere. There's groypers in the administration. There's groypers at Turning Point USA. There's groypers at Fox News, at Daily Wire. There's groypers in the CR. We're everywhere. There's groypers in Palantir. There's groypers everywhere all the time. And what we just need is to raise up that army, find out where we are, and start to create these cells across the country. You see, Hassan Piker has sort of the same problem that I have. If he goes and endorses a candidate, they get asked about his comments about 9/11 and the rest of it. If he shows up at an event, it has the same effect if I show up to an event. Not one-to-one, but it's similar. So what Hassan Piker does is he puts those ideas out there and he converts the masses to the ideology with the viral clips and the live stream, and he relies upon those young people to go and volunteer themselves, and then they're going to follow. The assemblyman, the mayoral campaign, the congressional campaign, whatever. You then need to be the sleeper cell. That's how we have to think of ourselves. You can't destroy an ideology. We need to have these Groyper sleeper cells. No one's going to know who's a Groyper and who isn't. No one's going to, and maybe even if they do, can't do anything about it. Can't prove it. Can't fire that guy. We need him. Maybe that guy's boss is a Groyper too. But that's what we need to do. Sleeper cells. This is why we need to be digested by the system in a way. You need to go in, enter, and be digested and just become a part of the fabric in your community, in your area. And this is how we're going to slowly make change over time. This is what the DSA has done over the period of decades. They've done this over decades, community organizing, and it's not sexy and it's not fun and it's local issues and you got to be committed for years. And yeah, sometimes you're going to meet your favorite live streamer, but most of the time not. But this is how we make real change. It's who is going to have that durable ideology. It's the ideas. It's the ideals. People say, we're not going to post our way out of this. Yeah, we fucking are.
Yeah, and the thing is, when I ratio Matt Nuclear on Twitter multiple times over, I don't know, it's been like 3-4 times now, lost count. When I realized that no matter how much institutional backing these people have, $100 million at Daily Wire or whatever, state-funded media at CBC, DSA supported by, all the Jews, essentially, right? That our message pierces through. We are like a rapier going through chainmail. We just go right through, and our ideas are so potent. We are so correct and on the side of truth. We can't help but win. And so we can't be meek and timid and hold back our views when they are politically in the spotlight. But when we are gaining our power level, think of it like Star Wars. We're on the outer rim, gaining power. All right. You need to think like that. We're on the outer edges of the galaxy, just regaining our power, essentially. And then one day, we are kind of like the Sith, right? I mean, we all know the Sith were the good guys in Star Wars, right?
Because it's about spreading those ideas. The ideas transform the minds of the people. And the people that believe the hardest, those are the ones that are committed for 20 years. Those are the people that are committed enough to show up on a weekend and knock on doors and phone bank and the rest of it. And we've got some unique challenges as well. But that's the takeaway on ground game. Now, I want to say one other thing about this, and then we're going to probably move on into the super chats. Here's the other thing about this DSA situation, which I want to point out. There has been a strategy, very concerted on the left. They are using criticism of Israel as a Trojan horse for radical left politics. Have you ever noticed that some of the most prominent Israel critical journalists are leftists? I'm talking about guys like Ryan Grimm, Glenn Greenwald, Max Blumenthal, okay? Drop Site News, the Glenn Greenwald program, The Intercept.
Yeah, absolutely. People love Glenn Greenwald just because he is anti-Israel, all right? Because he is pro-Palestine. But let me tell you something. If you start to go against the gay or the transgender thing, right, that whole market or whatever, if you go against that, Glenn will be out there attacking you like a rabid dog, all right? He'll be treating you like you're some kind of Zionist, right? Like you're some kind of warmongering Israeli. If you say, oh, Glenn, I don't think you should be able to adopt children as a gay man, and I don't believe in women, and I don't believe in women can be men and men can be women, he'll come at you viscerally.
The Gray Zone, Cenk Uygur and Hassan Piker at the Young Turks, these are all left-wing outlets. And what they do is they beat the drum against Israel, criticism of the war. They invite people in. But what do all these people really fundamentally believe in? With these candidates in particular, everyone is hailing the victory of these DSA progressive candidates in the primary as a victory over AIPAC. The anti-Israel progressives have triumphed over the pro-Israel establishment. Anti-AIPAC has triumphed over AIPAC and Netanyahu. This is how it's being characterized. But what else do these candidates represent? In the case of Every single one of them. Claire Valdez, Brad Lander, Daria Liza Chevalier. You go on their campaign website, they support abortion on demand, queer liberation, Medicare for all, taxing all millionaires and billionaires. They support abolishing ICE. They support giving free legal representation to illegals that have encountered DHS. They want to get rid of the prisons. They want to defund the police. This is a very radical left-wing agenda.
Yeah, like this is the enemy agenda, guys. Like if anybody that you know is or watching or listening to that they are for that kind of stuff, but they go, "Oh, I'm anti-Israel." Bro, why are you listening to them? They view you, all right? If you're like a Nick viewer, if you watch Blasphemer, if you identify as a groiper or even a regular run-of-the-mill nationalist or milquetoast conservative like Charlie Kirk, super, super moderate, you're like a Nazi to them and you should be killed. You be hanged like a kulak.
And if we get their agenda, it means open borders. It means mass migration. The illegals are never going anywhere. It means we're destroying the economy by taxing the rich, taxing the middle class, the businesses. Criminals are not being arrested in the streets. People are doing drugs in the streets. And you look at these people, down to a man and woman, they hate America. Well, one of these candidates that won, this Chevalier, she had a tweet in 2019. She said, "I didn't have a napkin at the restaurant, so I just wiped my hands on the American flag."
Like that should just be illegal, straight up. You did what? Excuse me? You wiped your dirty hands with food on them on the American flag? Like, excuse me?
She says, defund the police, abolish the police, abolish ICE. And what the left is doing is they're bundling their radical left-wing agenda and they're putting a label on it, which is, well, this is just what it is to be anti-Israel. And they've been doing it for a long time. You know when they really started to do this? There's a very specific point in time, I believe, and no one talks about this.
I think, yeah, let me guess, like the killing of Charlie Kirk. Because, dude, let's be real. They all started going off and being like, Israel killed Charlie Kirk. Like, let's be real. That came from like a bunch of leftists right around that same time. And that's really when it seems to be, at least, they really amped up their whole rhetoric on the far left of anti-Israel.
When they started doing this, and that was September 10th, 2025. Charlie Kirk was killed by Tyler Robinson. He was. Tyler Robinson's transgender boyfriend sold him out. His parents turned him in. His DNA was found at the scene of the crime. His grandparents' gun was found in the bush, discarded after the killing. Tyler Robinson was the killer. He confessed.
It's like so crazy that it's so difficult for people to just analyze the facts of the case, what we have, what we know, and they can't accept it. Like, dude, how many of us, we watch so much crime shows, we can predict how an investigation is going to go. Dude, this evidence is like a mountain against Tyler Robinson. Are you kidding me? The fact that people believed that Israel killed Charlie Kirk in the first place, and these people are still posting and they have any sort of credibility, is just beyond me, dude. You should be like under the social media jail.
And what was Tyler Robinson? He was part of the radical left. He was in left-wing Discord servers. He organized with left-wing students. He was one of these people that would have been in favor of Zohran Mamdani. He's a radical left, trans liberation, socialist progressive, hick lib. That's what he was. He killed Charlie Kirk. And what immediately happened after Charlie Kirk died is all of a sudden there was a mandate from an angry nation, which was unequivocally destroy the radical left. Everybody in America was horrified by the violence. Everybody other than the most extreme elements on the left.
Yeah, like, dude, I remember in the immediate aftermath, just talking to normies, IRL, and people were shook. People were like, oh my God, like if that's what Antifa is, we should lock up Antifa. We should send in Delta Force to do anything, to any means necessary to Antifa, which I still support, by the way. If we can get, 101st Airborne on Antifa, that would be fantastic.
Young people and old people, black people and white people, men and women, boys and girls, gay people, everybody was horrified that Charlie Kirk was gunned down, gushing blood out of his neck at some campus college event. And the mandate was unequivocal, which is find the culprit, destroy them. And that's exactly what the government was going to do. Didn't they say Stephen Miller and Vance were on the case and they were going to root out and destroy DSA in these socialist cells across the country? But then what happened? What happened right after that is all of a sudden everybody started to muddy the waters and blame it on Israel. Suddenly there was this narrative that people were wearing maroon and there were these Egyptian planes chasing Charlie Kirk and there were a bunch.
Yeah, everyone forgets exactly where this whole thing started, right? But I remember at the time, because we were talking about and covering it all the time, I remember this came from the gray zone with Max Blumenthal, a Jewish Canadian communist, okay? That's where this originated from. He's a far left Jewish, reporter. That's what he is.
Of Israelis there. And what about the angle from behind him? Didn't Charlie Kirk didn't he just crash out on Bill Ackman? Would you like to know where this narrative originated? The narrative that Charlie Kirk was killed by Israel originated in the gray zone with Max Blumenthal.
I mean, we talked about this. I remember reacting to Nick at the time, right? Around 9 months ago or so, I guess. Remember, we were talking about this. I remember reacting. I think I privated most of the videos from those times, but yeah, we were literally talking about this. We were talking about how Max Blumenthal is like a Jewish communist agent, bro.
Max Blumenthal is a Jew. Max Blumenthal used to work for the SPLC, the Huffington Post, Slate, the most far-left publications that are out there. And you think this guy criticizes Israel? He was out there doing hit pieces against David Irving, the Holocaust, the World War II historian that happens to be a Holocaust revisionist for the SPLC. He's a radical leftist. He's a socialist. And Max Blumenthal is the one who initially promulgated the false narrative in the gray zone that Charlie Kirk might have been killed by Israel. Max Blumenthal made up the story that Bill Ackman crashed out on Charlie Kirk. He made up the story that Netanyahu tried to pay Charlie Kirk $200 million.
And also, Tucker has cited Max Blumenthal's reporting as well as credible. Even though Max Blumenthal he is Canadian, or first of all, he's not from America. He is Jewish, and he is a avowed communist. He's not even a socialist. He doesn't even try to couch it as like, oh, I'm a democratic socialist. Find Max Blumenthal on his live streams with Aaron Mate. Max Blumenthal is an avowed communist.
To stop criticizing Israel. Neither of those things were true. Bill Ackman brought the receipts. It turns out that Charlie Kirk asked for a meeting with Bill Ackman, selected the people that attended the meeting, and all those people then went on a trip to Israel after the retreat. This $200 million contribution was never corroborated by any other source. But that was the story that everybody took, Candace Owens included, and it was off to the races. And you know who else was pushing this narrative all over social media? The American Communist Party. The American Communist Party, headed up by Hazal Dink and that other nitwit Jackson Hinkle.
God, dude, I saw Virillium, dude, on Twitter today. Dude, Virillium is such an idiot. What is he going on about today? He didn't even answer or reply to me, dude. But he's like, oh yeah, look, we actually, have a lot more in common with communists than we really think. Horseshoe theory is really real, guys. I was talking to Hazal Dean, and all they got wrong on the communist side of things are some abstract things, guys. Mega communism, that's where it's at. And I just said to him, I was like, dude, they want to kill you and me, actually. They want to send us to the gulags, to the death camps behind razor wire, all right, with guards. That's actually your fate. You think the liberators are going to come to save you then? So no, Virillium, what the hell's going on with that fucking guy? He's a super idiot. Gaylord does not represent us whatsoever.
Those were the people that were the shock troops pushing it on Twitter, and that's because maybe some people have suggested that Tyler Robinson was in their Discord server. So whose head would have been rolling on the floor? Whose head would have been rolling down the steps Had the government and society been unified against the radical left, it probably would have been those people that were pushing this narrative that it was anybody other than the radical left that did the killing. That's how it started. But then it kept rolling on and on. When the socialist Nicolas Maduro was extradited from Venezuela, who was out there saying that was an Israeli op? The far left. When ICE killed those two protesters and Hassan Piker and the radical left in Minneapolis were firebombing ICE facilities and attacking ICE and attacking Border Patrol, what did they say then? They said, well, ICE is trained by Israel. It's an Israel issue. And this is the pattern. The left is pushing their agenda everywhere, always, their ideological agenda. They're pushing their agenda covering up the murder of Charlie Kirk. They're pushing their agenda covering for Cuba and Venezuela. They're pushing their agenda covering for these Somalian migrants in Minneapolis.
Yeah, and it fits that they're the source for the whole Charlie Kirk Israel's conspiracy theory. It makes sense because it's like they're the ones who perpetrated it. Right? Like Tyler Robinson is one of them. It makes sense that a communist like Max Blumenthal would make this up. He would plant this story, and then people like Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens just run with it. It really makes you think about these people that took it and ran with it.
And in every single case, they hide behind Israel. And they say, oh, the left didn't kill Charlie Kirk. That was Israel. Oh, you think the left did it? What are you, with Israel? We didn't remove Nicolas Maduro because he's aligned with China and Russia. No. We removed Maduro because of Israel. What are you, with Israel? You support American empire? You're with Israel? Same thing with ICE. Oh, you don't support Somalians stealing all the tax money and sending it to their country? What are you, with Israel? ICE trained with the IDF, you know? What are you, with this pro-Israel administration?
Bro, anytime I talk imperialist, I get on my imperialism, American, pro-American empire. Dude, leftists get on me and they accuse me of like being a Zionist. And I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, are you kidding me? Like, me a Zionist? Get a hold of yourself, bro. Like, and that's what's stupid to me is like, I think military shit is inherently cool because I'm a guy. All right. Maybe it's like a woman thing. I don't think so. Actually, some girls think military shit's cool too. So I don't even think it's that. I just think these people are just stupid. They hate America. And so they want America's military to do bad. I love the U.S. military. I wish the U.S. military was just doing things that were good for America. That were good for Americans. Like and that's the thing too. You poo-pooey about the U.S. military, bro. Like the U.S. military is sick, bro. If you hate on the U.S. military, you suck.
This is what the left is doing. They are taking their ideology, they're bundling it with Israel criticism, and this is like a Mott and Bailey. What they're pushing is they are pushing a pro-China, pro-Russia agenda. They're supporting Maduro in Cuba. They're supporting open borders, abolish ICE, Medicare for all, pushing trade unions, all this garbage, pushing abortion, feminism, pushing anti-white tax policies. And then if anyone has anything to say about it, they retreat and they say, oh, well, you're just with AIPAC. You're just with Israel. And they're all doing that. Ryan Grimm, Max Blumenthal, Jackson Hinkle, Hassan Piker. This is what they all do. I don't want queer liberation. I don't want open borders. I don't want to abolish ICE. I don't want to defund the police. I don't want Medicare for all and taxing millionaires and billionaires. I don't want a policy where we're pro-Venezuela, Cuba, and China. It doesn't even make any sense. I'm right wing. And by the way, I'm America first. How is it America first to let illegal immigrants take over our country? How is it America first to not deport them? How is it America first to redistribute the wealth from taxpayers, business owners, middle class people, and give it to illegal immigrants and their children?
It's true, bro. Like, I think rich people actually deserve more, bro. Like, let's be real. Like, that's the way nature actually has been organized. You know, the poor will be poorer and the rich will be richer. It just is what it is. And I feel like if you go against that, you're just going against nature, bro.
To educate them, to take care of them when they use the emergency room as their health care, to pay for their subsidized housing, to pay for their food stamps. People talk about affordability. Here's an idea. Why don't we deport 10 million people? Don't you think that we're running a giant deficit? Don't you think we're running out of money? Don't you think everything is unaffordable because we have a giant population of people that don't work? We have a giant underclass, a giant foreign-born population, and other minorities too that don't work. They get subsidized everything.
Yeah, bro. Like, there was a great Tyler Oliveira video, part 1, that he just put out about Ireland, and he goes around asking all these asylum seekers, those quote-unquote refugees, where there's no actual war happening in their home country. Riddle me that. But he's going around asking, how much money do you get from the Irish government? And they're all like in broken English. Some of them can't even speak English, but they're like, oh, I get 250 euros every week for this. And then it keeps adding up. And they're like, oh, so you're making like, on top of your phone bill, your rent, your food, or your utilities, all this free stuff. They're giving you all this free money. These people are making thousands of dollars a month just off of the taxpayer, and they're probably going to go home back to the third world shithole. That is what they're going to do. Meanwhile, none of that money goes to any of the actual citizens. It would be better off just going straight into your guys' pockets. Let's be real.
They get subsidized everything. Guess what? A Venezuelan that doesn't speak English and has no education cannot do anything in New York City that is going to make enough money to buy an apartment in New York City. And that's because they have no skills, no language, and no education. So what do we need to do with all these people? We have to subsidize their housing and their healthcare and their education and their food and their children and their extended family and all the rest of it. And this is what is being called socialism.
I feel blessed because I'm like, the only immigrants that I know are people that are come from like medical or like legal families or like business families. Like, the only immigrants I personally know or friends are associated with are like well-to-do, like very skilled people, And it's like, when I see these miscreants out on the street, I'm just like, bro, like, just get out of my country. Like, you don't even have any skills, bro. At least some people come here with some skills. You're like a doctor, like a real doctor, okay? Or something like that. Like, that's actually useful. But 99% of these people have nothing.
This is race communism. This is literal race communism. And understand the relationship between these things. Migrants are being brought in. They're replacing the white people. Everything about their lives is subsidized. All their opportunities are subsidized. They rely on DEI to get access to benefits, employment, education, and every one of their expenditures is subsidized. Either they're not working or they're not making enough money, and all of their housing, healthcare, food, education, their TVs, it's all subsidized. And it's subsidized by who? It's subsidized by an ever-shrinking workforce, which is made up of native white people that simply do not live like this. White people that actually are going to have a job and pay their taxes, that would never consider going on welfare, that don't want to use the emergency room as healthcare.
Dude, white people as like a culture or whatever, guys, we all know this, but we've grown a tolerance as white people to just paying more to not have to deal with like populations, not have to deal with stuff. We are used to luxury pricing. It's like a cost of being white. It's like a tax that is invisible, that it's levied and you don't even think about it. It's like the fact that you have to do all of your shopping online, it's just more expensive overall than buying it at retail. You think about everything in your life. The fact that you have to have a car because you can't take public transit because the public transit isn't safe. All right. It's like these people don't even have these costs. And if they do have these costs, they get subsidized by the government.
White people that don't want to live in the slums and the ghettos with these ethnic enclaves. And so they need to price themselves out of that.
And that's like the biggest tax, right? It's buying a multi-million-dollar house somewhere where, there's no black people essentially, right? Like that is the tax that white people in mass are paying. It's white flight and it has a price.
With private schooling and gated communities and high property taxes and zoning and code, which prevents different populations from coming in. This is a form of race communism. And by the way, these socialists, that is exactly their vision of the future. Understand that these socialists, they hate America. They're not they may be anti-Israel. It doesn't make them pro-America. They're anti-Israel. Why? It's the same reason they say that Netanyahu is not a real Jew. They say Netanyahu is Polish. He's from Europe. The Ashkenazim are a European nationality. Why do they say this? Because they believe Israel is a European settler colonialist state. They hate Israel because they believe Israel is European, capitalist, colonial.
Yeah, they literally talk about it when they preface it and they're educating people and they're like, this is what's going on in this part of the world. When a leftist is teaching this course on Israel-Palestine, they often preface it almost every time with a little lesson on South Africa and what apartheid is. And you'll see this if you go into leftist YouTube where they're talking about this, it's always prefaced and contextualized with this is like just like South Africa.
They're oppressing these indigenous people of the Middle East. And that's why they don't like Netanyahu. That's why they don't like this form of Zionism in Israel. And by the way, that's why they also hate America. They see America as a European settler colonial state, capitalist, that it's going to get its comeuppance. And this is why they're in favor of liberation of every stripe. They want open borders because they see the non-white people as the poor people of Earth. And so they want the benefits of America to be provided to all the people of the world. Borders are open. No borders, no nations. No deportations. Bring all the poor, oppressed people of the world into America to enjoy the spoils of America. We're not just going to redistribute the wealth from rich Americans to poor Americans. We're going to redistribute the wealth from heritage Native Americans to foreign nationals. Borders are open. Come on in. The wealth is for everybody. No deportations, no borders, no nations, no boundaries. All the poor people from those poor, oppressed former colonies of Haiti and Dominican Republic and Panama and Guatemala and the rest of Colombia and Africa and then Indonesia, all these people can come into America and they can all get their gibs. They can all get their free healthcare, free housing, free cars, free food, and they're going to get into the best schools with DEI and get the best jobs at the biggest companies with DEI. And this is too good for too long, and they need to be outnumbered, overpowered, fucking punished, and have all their stuff reappropriated, have all their stuff repoed, and given to the workers of the world.
That's exactly it, bro. The socialists haven't changed. McCarthy was right, bro. We should have been locking these people up like the whole time. Like, the fact that communists are just allowed to preach their rhetoric in public with little to no pushback, there's no taboo. You don't lose your job when you praise Mao or Stalin or anything like that. Like, nothing like that. I mean, if you praise Stalin, you're a bit of a Chad. Like, let's be real. He's kind of a gangster.
That's the DSA vision. That's why abolish ICE is in all their platforms. That's why they're all, it's some frizzy-haired African getting a PhD. A PhD in what? Exactly. A PhD in Kendrick Lamar studies. You get one frizzy-haired African over here. You get some liberal Zionist Jew over there. You get some Dominican, whatever over there. And they're all in favor of abolish ICE.
Bro, that was like my first day of college. Was my teacher. I thought she was white at first, but then she started going on, we're not going to learn anything about these crusty old white men. All that stuff is stuffy, and we're not going to learn anything about it. And then when I was speaking to her, got closer, I realized, oh, gosh, she's got a little Star David. Yep. Yeah, hating on the white man on the first day.
Eat the rich, Medicare for all, and free housing, and free busing, and free food, and free this, and free that. And who's going to pay for it? It's a giant free for all. And who's going to pay for it? The rich white people. And it's a punishment. So they're not America first. They may be anti-Israel. They're not America first. At all. And by the way, this is why they like Venezuela. This is why they like Cuba. Because Venezuela and Cuba are Israel critical, certainly. But they're also ideologically socialist. And they're also ideologically anti-American. And so they have the same convictions about this as we do. Maduro and Chavez nationalized the oil because they want to punish the West. You know, they could have prosperity if they aligned with America, but they are part of an ideological global socialist revolution. That's why Hassan Piker and that other nitwit, that's why they go to Venezuela. That's why they go to Cuba. That's why they go to China.
And people are like, oh, well, are they getting paid by Russia or China or Cuba or Venezuela? It's like, dude, understand, they don't need to get paid. These people actually believe in this ideology. They think they're going to win. And the reason a lot of these people, specifically like people like Piker, they choose this side is because they think they're going to be politically they're going to have a political advantage over their opponents in the future, right? That's what it is. They think they're going to have a cushy spot. They're going to have lots of money, lots of power. People are going to have to do what they say. People won't be able to criticize them. It's not that they're getting paid now. They don't need that payment right now. It's what's coming down the line for them later.
And what's interesting is a lot of them also have some of these connections to Russia as well. Max Blumenthal is a regular on Russia Today and Sputnik. Candace Owens is at the St. Petersburg Economic Forum, and she's going to be there twice a year, apparently. And Jackson Hinkle is on the payroll of Russia. He got put on to some company by Sergei Lavrov, their foreign minister. Isn't that interesting? So Blumenthal, who promulgated the Charlie Kirk story at Gray Zone, is aligned with Russian state media. Candace Owens, that promoted it everywhere, she's visiting Russia twice a year. She's at the St. Petersburg Economic Forum. The Mercers, Rebecca Mercer has a Russian husband. John Mappin has a Kazakh wife. Those are her backers.
And she's Kazakh, but a lot of people know about half of the Kazakh population is ethnically Russian. It's not, and like the primary language spoken there is Russian.
And the people that promoted this Israel story on social media, the American Communist Party, it's led by Jackson Hinkle, who's literally in Russia now.
Jackson Hinkle, by the way, just a disgusting human being. This guy, he's basically celebrating drone strikes and missile strikes on Ukraine, on civilians daily. What it's just like, honestly, you're just going to burn in hell for all I care.
It's really interesting how all that comes together, isn't it? So we have to understand what is happening here. We have to understand, look, I'm not a democratic socialist at all. I'm not a socialist at all. I don't want to abolish ICE. I don't want to defund the police. I don't want Medicare and housing and Section 8 and all this stuff for everybody. I actually don't. I think that we should have jobs. We should have assistance for the unemployed, the indigent, the elderly, things of that nature. Maybe you talk about a universal basic income, but the only way you get a generous welfare state is if you close the borders.
And think about what the end purpose is, guys. When we talk about, as Groypers, as nationalists, we would like to, for instance, build a lot of new transit. Well, it's to help people get to their new manufacturing jobs, right? That's the purpose here. They want to give free transit to everybody so they can just go scoot around the city for free on fentanyl or whatever they're doing and not have to worry about paying a dime for public transit. That's the difference here.
Close the borders, deport the illegals, get everybody a job. And once people are actually working and paying taxes, then you can talk about a supplemental income program. Then you can talk about unemployment insurance. Then you could talk about some kind of universal basic catastrophic health insurance. Then you can talk about things like that. But this is a totally different story. And I see Sneeko jumping on the bandwagon. He goes, if it weren't for these cultural issues, the DSA would be perfect. Hey, fucking idiot. Those are their issues. He goes, if only the left wasn't open borders, trans liberation, abortion, hating God, pro-drugs, then they'd be great. If it weren't for those culture war issues, those are the issues for them. And sure, they're against Israel, but for them, that's actually what is ancillary. Their big priorities are redistributing the wealth in America. So that we have to be very wary that we are not being instrumentalized by the radical left. I'm not a leftist. I'm not Workers of the World Unite. I'm not with Russia and Venezuela and Cuba. Fuck Maduro and the Cuban communists and all of that.
Big time. If you got like feelings over the Venezuela operation, I'm sorry, but you're not going to make it, bro. Like, I loved that shit. Like, that shit was sick. I like live streamed that when it happened. That was sick. I reacted to it live. Like, that was like a real filter, that if you were upset at what, like, dude, the most like awesome military operation ever, capturing this stupid Venezuelan president, this communist, if you're against that, I'm sorry, but just like get out, bro. You're not welcome.
Russia does not care about America. Russia and America are enemies. Now, you may hope that one day we could have a working relationship with them, but as it stands, that is not the case. Okay? And Cuba and Venezuela, these are not good guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, people on the right have this fascination, this, this kind of obsession with Russia. I would say, actually, it's more accurately, it's infatuation. People on the right are infatuated with Russia, but it's just the worst, stupidest thing. It's like a declining country, dude. They don't believe in, like, their rates of atheism are super high. Some of the highest HIV rates in the world, the highest abortion rate in the world. Like, are you kidding me? One of the highest migration rates in the world. Like, they've watered down like their ethnicity with like Asians and Turkic looking people. Like, bro, and they're invading their neighbors. They just suck to be a neighbor, like, with. Like, who wants to be like a neighbor with Russia? Fuck Russia.
These are not good guys that are on our side. They do not wish us well. And the same goes for anybody that would support the Somalians in Minneapolis. The same goes for anybody that would run cover, defend all these people that cheered the death of Charlie Kirk, and all these people that want this generous subsidy state with open borders. You know, all these words, housing and healthcare and the rest of it, that's just a buzzword for taking from you to give to other people. Guess what? Do you have a job? Do you own a business? Do you have wealth? They want to take that and give it to foreigners and people that don't work. That's all that is. Half this country doesn't pay taxes. Half this country doesn't work. The majority of this country is being subsidized to some degree. And it's being subsidized by the people that pay for their own shit. So no, the answer is not more of that. Section 8. How about build more housing? But you want to know what else you could do? You want to know why housing is so expensive? Because a third of the city is hell. That's why it's expensive. That is blighted. You can't go there. It's a no-go zone.
It's true, bro. It's like Yarnum, bro. It's like the night of the hunt in some areas. Like, I was just talking about this with my friend. Bro, some areas are just like too dangerous to go around, like especially Toronto, let alone like if you're a man, if you're in a group of men, if you're like a woman on her own or like an elderly person or like a young child, it's super dangerous out there in these cities, bro. And it's a lot of these asylum seekers, a lot of these migrants, a lot of these black gangs. They're just looking to pull up and rob people.
So if you actually policed the city, if there was less crime, then there'd be more housing. And guess what? If you deported all these illegals, there'd be more housing. And if you got rid of all these regulations and punitive taxes and these tenant rules that make it impossible to get rid of tenants, you could probably bring rents down as well. That would make housing a lot cheaper than just, no, let's bring in more immigrants and let's just control the rents and subsidize the rents.
Yeah, like I wanted to be a landlord and then I looked into it and I was like, good Lord, I'm not dealing with that law. Absolutely not. Fuck that, dude. No, that's hell, actually. Like evicting people, like squatters, basically, like that is hell on earth.
Same thing with healthcare. Healthcare is a finite resource like anything else. There's only so many specialists, doctors, MRI machines, the rest of it. Here's an idea. If we had fewer people that were getting it for free, maybe if there were other kinds of preventative policies or something. If you,
Yeah, bro, these people will have like a cold and they'll call an ambulance and then they won't pay the ambulance bill. Like that is normal for them. Like they just think it's free.
if you took all these illegal immigrants that, I mean, they're not paying for health insurance. They don't have coverage. Get them out of the country. Then there's a greater ratio of doctors to people that need doctors. Common sense. And so on and so forth. But the idea that we're going to have more people, a punitive tax code, but the same amount of resources and things are going to get cheaper, more bountiful, it doesn't make any sense. So, and this is what they're trying to do. I saw this exchange between Ryan Grimm and Matt Walsh on Wednesday. Matt Walsh, to his credit, he's right about this. Matt Walsh says, look, these third worldists, they hate you. These are third world socialists. They hate white people. They hate America. They hate you. He's right. And he says, what's more, they want to kill you. He's right. That's what's going on in South Africa. That is what they want here. And Ryan Grimm from Dropsite, he's a very anti-Israel guy, Israel critical publication. Ryan Grimm quote tweets and says, oh, you're running cover for AIPAC and Netanyahu. Really? And if I don't want Zohran Mamdani with his queer liberation and abolishing ICE and taxing the whites to give free shit to the blacks, I'm pro-Netanyahu? If I want these Somalians that are stealing billions of dollars from the state, and when the state sues them, they say, we'll file a Justice Department complaint for racism. If I have a problem with that, I'm in favor of AIPAC now?
I mean, he's a big self-hating white man, dude. Super cringe. Whenever I see Ryan Grimm go off on this kind of stuff, it is just, it's really disgusting as like a white man to see a fellow white man just sit there and denigrate like our own people and be like, we're the enemy. It's like, it is almost surreal too when I see Ryan Grimm on a show start to go off like this. I'm like, this is like an alien to me, bro. Like, who the fuck are you?
And then you realize, oh, wait a second. These people hate America. They do hate white people. They do hate you, and they're just being dishonest. They want you to vote for your own destruction. And when you try to protest your own destruction, they say, oh, what are you with AIPAC? What are you with Israel? Think about it. Situation in Minneapolis. In Minneapolis, you've got Somalians. They identify as Somalians. They're loyal to Somalia. They only care about Somalia. They have a political racket going where they steal taxpayer dollars and they actually send it as a remittance to Somalia. They actually take the money out of our economy and they send it over there.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know, but the vast majority of Somalia's GDP comes from American remittances, taxpayer dollars, most of it.
In principle, how is that any different from what Israel is doing? Jews that are here, loyal to Israel, more loyal to Israel than America, built a political racket to take taxpayer dollars and send it to Israel. How is that any different? In principle, it's the same. It's only different in scale and sophistication because Somalians are stupid and there's less of them, or fewer of them. And yet the DSA will protect the Somalians but criticize Israel. When ICE is deporting Somalians, shouldn't they be cheering that on? When DOJ and Department of Homeland Investigations goes into Minneapolis to investigate the fraud, shouldn't they be supporting that? No, Hassan Piker and their Jew mayor and that Somalian that was running, no, they're out there trying to kill ICE officers. They're out there trying to kill ICE. They're out there trying to obstruct what they're doing in protest. To no kings, abolish ICE. So what's the difference? Why is it okay for Somalians to steal our money and send it to their home country, but it's not okay for Israel? The difference is the skin color. The difference is that Somalians are poor. Somalia is poor. Somalians are poor. And so it's like they're right to steal white people's money. It's
literally the old Norm Macdonald bit where he's like, he's I forget what show it was on. Was it Bill Maher or something? It's classic Norm Macdonald. But he's like, poor people are inherently more violent, right? And they agree with him. They're like, yeah. And he's like, and like black people tend to be a bit more poor, right? And the people are like, yeah. He's like, so, black people tend to be a little bit more violent.
They're right to set up shop in a very white state and take advantage of all the resources there and redistribute it their way and steal the money because they're poor. They're poor, oppressed, non-whites. You know, you're upset about $8 billion. Well, take it up with Italy that colonized Somalia, and take it up with America that destroyed Somalia. And why is it wrong when Israel does it? Because Israel's a colonial state. So if we were sending that money to Cuba, would they have a problem? No. If we were sending that money to rebuild Cuba and Venezuela, when we're sending that money to Africa for fucking AIDS relief or whatever, do they have a problem with that? No, they're protesting that. No, don't give Israel billions of dollars. Give billions of dollars worth of condoms and aid medication to Africa. Give billions of dollars in humanitarian assistance. What's the difference? The difference is that Israel is a settler country using the money for military expansion, and all this other money is for the workers of the world, for the oppressed brown people of history.
And you know what's so ironic about all of that aid money is that it's been pretty much proven, right? I mean, you can find studies on this. Big government studies have been, and universities have done plenty of studies on this. That aid money given to these third world poor nations, it's completely ruins their local economies. Just think about it. If you send, say, for instance, a bunch of free clothes to, I don't know, Sierra Leone, you've just decimated their local their local clothing market, like their local clothing manufacturing. Now no one's buying any of their local clothes because everyone's just wearing, 1 cent, 2 cent, 5 cent, 10 cent t-shirts from, that are basically garbage from the West. And rinse and repeat. It's like, no, aid is actually bad for these developing nations because it kills local economies.
It's race communism. That's what it is. And race communism is actually why they oppose Israel. So what I am proposing is that we have to be Israel critical from the right. We have to take our own side. Muslims are not looking out for us. Leftists are not looking out for us. Muslims don't give a fuck about us at all. And they lie. They say, well, we think Jesus is a prophet. Yeah, you also want Islam to dominate the world. So what good does that do me? They defend their rape gangs in the United Kingdom. So I'm pro-Muslim to a point. They're not on my side. And I'm not a leftist either. These leftists, look, I'm a millionaire and I'm a white man and I'm a homeowner. They want to punitively tax me and fucking hurt me to benefit black people that don't work, to benefit illegal aliens that just got here. They're not looking out for me. They're not on my side either. And neither is the Trump administration, by the way. Neither is Miriam Adelson, Stephen Miller, and Trump. They want my vote. They don't care about me. They're bombing Iran on behalf of Israel. They're giving Larry Ellison a media empire. So I'm saying let's take our own side. I'm anti-immigration. I'm anti-Israel. I'm tranny queer liberation. I'm anti-abortion on demand. I'm a Christian. I'm a Christian, white American. I want borders. I don't want to give all our money and die for Israel. It's that simple. So we need to take our own side. We are the right. We are America first. I'm an America first white Christian with some dough. I want to work hard, keep what I earn. That's the America that I want, and that's my side. Now, theoretically, we can come together in coalitions with other people, but first there must be an us. We cannot be dissolved into somebody else's faction. I'm not a leftist. I'm not a Muslim. Now, incidentally, you can create posses where you align with other bubbles, with other factions, but we need to be our own faction first. And our faction is right-wing, American, Christian, pro-white, Israel critical. Because you know what? There's a Zionist element on the right wing that's doing the same thing. They want us to be their suckers so that we support the pro-Israel agenda. We can't have that either. So it's a very nuanced thing we're striking out, which is, look, this is why it's called America First. Not Republican, not Trump, not MAGA, not conservative. We're America First. Not populist, socialist, workers of the world, isolationist, pro-Russia, whatever. No, America First. Not Muslim, not whatever. America First. That's what I am. And America's a Christian white country. It's what it is. Can't change that. If America isn't that anymore, then it isn't America. I'm still part of the American nation. So that's a very important thing for us to understand. That's important for all of us Groypers to understand. Yes, you can pick and choose. You don't need to be Trump or Zoran. And what we're looking for is that leader. We need a leader who is going to guide us, who is going to show the way. We need a dark triad leader who's going to show the way. We thought it was Trump. It's not. Maybe a dark horse, maybe a certain dark triad, dark horse. Maybe a dark triad, dark.
Yeah, I mean, what are the chances that we actually get like our Caesar in the near future? I don't really know. I mean, I try to stay optimistic about this. But I think the way things are going, I think there's going to be a severe backlash when it comes to this far left. As if, like I was saying, there's way more right-wing people in the cities than people like to admit. It's just they're afraid to speak up.
Course candidate that will point the way. Everything comes to a point. But that is what, because right now we don't have that mascot. We don't have that shelling point. We don't have that lightning rod. We need that. It's not going to be me. It needs to be somebody else. Somebody that's going to hold elected office. It needs to be America first. And it needs to be someone that understands this on a deep level. A true radical. Not a Dan Bilzerian who, is belching and farting his way into this like a fucking disgusting pig. Well, I just think, I just fucking think it's a fucking Jews. I didn't think about politics until 10 minutes ago. Yeah, you're an idiot. You don't know anything about anything. You don't know anything about anything. You don't know anything about government, economics. You don't know nothing about nothing, and you're not bothered to learn anything about it.
And that's like the worst kind of ignorant person, is somebody that's just okay with their ignorance. It's just like, I hate that kind of person, bro. That behavior, it's the worst kind of person.
Some trust fund fucking idiot. What has your lifestyle been? Hedonism? Carnal? And now you decided at the ripe age of what? You're in your 40s? Now I care about politics. I'm going to get my ideology from Twitter posts. I'm going to get my ideology from brainy quote, anti-Semitic quotes. Like, no, not that, not some meathead that got punched in the head too many times, not a pizza delivery driver, not a black mother. No, we need a brilliant white man. We need a brilliant, handsome white man to point the way, dark triad, to point the way, dark horse candidate that's going to be America first, right wing. They don't need to be some like trad. You don't need to be like a Catholic integralist necessarily, but you do need to be Christian. You do need to be white. You do need to be right wing. And it's simple as like, look, close the borders and no more of the Israel stuff. Okay, it's got to be anti-corruption. It can be economically populist. Like this can be the mix. This could be the trade-off. Close the border and then you get your gibs. Then you get your welfare. Economic populism, close borders, tough on crime, restrained foreign policy, anti-corruption. This can be the recipe, and it's got to be a handsome white guy. Lookism. Clavicular is a pillar. Fuentes is a pillar. There are many pillars. There are many pillars that are going to build this edifice. Lookism is unironically one of them. Lookism, anti-feminism, that conversation's part of it. White identity is a part of it. Understanding the variety of anti-Semitism, quote unquote, that we are, that's part of it. There are many pillars. And that's what it needs to be. That's what we're playing for. So that's that. Okay.
All right, guys, we're playing for keeps out here. Just know that. Like, subscribe, comment down below. Follow me on X, guys. Link is down in the description below. I'm out for tonight. Peace.